It was December 2023, and I was driving up to a cabin in the woods with my girlfriend Emma. We'd been together for a year and wanted to do something cozy and festive. I found this cabin on Airbnb that looked perfect, rustic but modernized, with a fireplace, a big deck, and it was only about 20 minutes from a little town with holiday shops and Christmas lights. The plan was simple: spend 3 nights away from everything, make hot chocolate, watch Christmas movies, maybe do some hiking if it wasn't too cold. Plus, the place was dog-friendly, so we brought our dog Milo, a 3-year-old golden retriever who gets more excited for snow than we do. It sounded like the perfect Christmas getaway. The drive was about 4 hours, and we got there around 4 p.m., right as the sun was starting to set. The cabin sat at the end of a narrow wooded road that twisted through thick trees. It had a steep driveway, but my Jeep handled it fine. As soon as we parked, Milo was going nuts in the back seat, pawing at the window like he knew what was coming. I let him out, and he instantly started sprinting in circles in the snow. The cabin was just as nice as it looked in the photos. Big wooden beams, cozy lighting, plaid blankets everywhere. It looked like something out of a Christmas catalog. There was a little welcome card on the kitchen counter from the host, David, with a handwritten note that said, "Merry Christmas! If you need anything, I'm just a call away. Enjoy the snow and stay warm." We unloaded our bags, groceries, and the gifts we brought to exchange with each other. I had this whole plan of giving Emma her gift on Christmas Eve by the fireplace. It was just a bracelet, nothing crazy, but I knew she'd love it. That first night we stayed in, I made pasta while Emma set up a playlist of Christmas songs. Milo passed out by the fireplace after running himself into exhaustion outside. It was perfect. Around 10:30 p.m., after we'd both showered and changed into sweats, I went to get some firewood from the shed outside. The air was brutally cold, and the sky was pitch black, the kind of darkness you only see when you're miles away from any city lights. As I walked toward the shed, I noticed something odd. Footprints in the snow. At first I figured they were mine from earlier when I walked Milo, but the closer I got, I realized they weren't. They were coming from the woods, heading toward the back of the cabin. I stood there for a second, staring at them, trying to think rationally. Maybe the last guest? Maybe a hiker? But the thing is, the footprints were fresh. Snow had been falling steadily for hours. So if they'd been there long, they would have been filled in by now. I decided not to tell Emma. She gets anxious about stuff like that, and I figured I'd just check around the property once more before locking everything up. I grabbed the firewood, went back inside, and casually locked the back door. Later that night, around 1 a.m., I woke up to Milo growling. He was standing by the door of the bedroom, ears up, body stiff. If you've ever had a dog, you know that growl. Low, slow, like he's warning something to stay away. I sat up, heart already racing. "Milo, what's wrong, buddy?" I whispered, but he didn't even glance at me. He was locked on the door. Emma woke up too. "What's he doing?" she asked, rubbing her eyes. "Probably heard an animal outside," I said, but I wasn't so sure. I got up, peeked through the bedroom window, but I couldn't see much, just snow falling quietly on the deck. I watched for a bit, waiting for something to move, but nothing did. I told Milo to chill, and eventually he did. I assumed it was a raccoon or a deer or something, but I double-checked all the locks before going back to bed. Still, it took me a while to fall asleep. The next night, Emma and I were in the living room watching Home Alone while eating cookies and drinking mulled wine. Milo was passed out again in front of the fire. I was just about to doze off when there was a knock at the front door. Not a soft knock, a loud 3-beat bang, bang, bang. Emma shot up, spilling her wine all over herself. Milo was instantly awake, barking and running to the door. "Who the hell is knocking out here at this hour?" Emma asked, standing up and wiping her shirt with a towel. "Probably the host or something," I said, though I knew it wasn't. It was almost midnight, and we were miles from the nearest neighbor. I stood in front of the door and checked through the peephole. No one was there. "Who is it?" Emma asked from behind me. "No one," I said, still staring through the peephole. I opened the door just a crack. Snowflakes blew in, but there was no one on the porch. just darkness and snowfall. I stepped out a bit to look down the driveway. Nothing. I shut the door and locked it. Probably just some kids messing around, I said, but that didn't even sound right to me. I didn't sleep much that night. Milo didn't either. He kept pacing between the door and the bedroom. Emma slept fine, which was honestly surprising. Around 3:30 a.m., I heard something outside. It was faint, but I knew what it was, the footsteps in the snow. It wasn't fast like someone running. It was slow, deliberate. I sat up slowly, heart pounding. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just listened. The footsteps circled the house once, and then again. I knew I should check, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I didn't want to see who was out there. I didn't even wake Emma. I just sat there in the dark, gripping my phone, debating whether to call 911. The footsteps stopped at the back of the house. Then, 3 loud bangs. It was the back door this time. Ilo went ballistic, barking like crazy. Emma shot up, asking, "What the hell is that?" "Stay here," I said, but she followed me. I didn't go to the back door. I went to the kitchen window and slowly peeked out. At first, I didn't see anything, just snow falling. But then I saw it. A man. No coat, no hat, no gloves, just a hoodie pulled over his head, snow collecting on his shoulders. He was staring directly at the window, like he knew I'd be looking. He didn't move, didn't knock again, just stared. His breath fogged in front of his face, slow and steady, like he wasn't even cold. Emma was behind me, whispering, "Call the cops. Please, call the cops." I backed away from the window, heart racing, trying to think. I knew it'd take cops at least 30 minutes to get here. The guy hadn't tried to break in. Not yet. The next 30 minutes were pure hell. We sat in the bedroom with the door locked, Milo growling nonstop. I could hear footsteps on the deck outside, slow, steady pacing. He was waiting. Eventually it stopped. I sat there, still listening, for at least another hour. When the sun came up, I finally had the guts to check. The back porch was covered in footprints, circling the deck. There were handprints on the living room window. We packed our bags and left before 8 a.m. When we were about 20 minutes away, I got a message from David, the Airbnb host. "Hey, just a heads up. We had an issue with a guy trespassing on one of my other properties down the road. Cops were called. If you hear anything weird, call 911 right away." I didn't tell him we already had. I never reported it. We just drove home. And I never looked back. But sometimes when I'm alone, I think about that guy's face at the window. No emotion, no fear, no rush, just staring. Sometimes I wonder if he was watching us from the woods the whole time. Last December, I was staying at my sister's house for Christmas. She lives in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the type where people go all out with Christmas lights and inflatable reindeer on every lawn. It was my first time visiting in years since she moved to a new state, and I figured it'd be good to spend some time with family. Her house was cozy, decked out with garlands, stockings, and the kind of holiday cheer you usually see in TV commercials. I was only supposed to stay for a week. My sister Emma has 2 kids, Sarah, who's 6, and Ben, who's 4. Cute kids, but loud. The kind of loud where you're counting down the minutes until bedtime just to get some peace. That night, Emma had a last-minute Christmas party to go to with her husband, and she asked if I could watch the kids for a few hours. I figured, why not? They'd be asleep after 8 p.m. anyway. By 8:30, both kids were in bed, and I was on the couch scrolling through my phone, half watching Home Alone on the TV. I remember the glow of the Christmas tree lights flickering across the room. It felt peaceful. Then came the first knock. It wasn't loud, just a couple of quick taps on the front door. I figured it was Emma or her husband forgetting something, but when I checked the peephole, no one was there. I stood there for a second, squinting through the glass panes on the side of the door. I thought maybe I'd imagined it, but I could have sworn I saw someone walking toward the street. I figured it was just some kid playing ding-dong ditch, so I went back to the couch. Not even 10 minutes later, there was another knock. This one was louder. 3 distinct bangs. This time, I didn't hesitate to check. I walked to the door quickly, but again, no one was there. No footsteps on the porch, no one walking away. I opened the door just a crack to get a better view. The streetlights reflected off the wet pavement, and across the street I noticed a man standing under one of the streetlights. He wasn't moving. He just stood there, not directly facing me, but sort of turned toward the house like he was looking at me out of the corner of his eye. I could see he was wearing a red jacket and a beanie, but something about his stance threw me off. He wasn't pacing, smoking, or doing anything normal that a person on a walk might do. He was still. I watched him for about 30 seconds, just waiting for him to walk away, but he didn't. I don't know what it is about stillness, but something about it always freaks me out more than if someone's actively moving. I slowly closed the door, locked it, and turned off the porch light, thinking maybe if it's dark he won't be able to see me inside. I told myself, it's fine, he's probably waiting for a ride. But then I remembered, I never heard a car. At this point I was uneasy, but I didn't want to be paranoid. I went back to the couch, checked on the kids real quick, and sat back down. I tried to focus on the movie, but I kept glancing over at the window. It was one of those big front-facing windows with only thin curtains, so it felt like anyone could be watching you from the outside without you even knowing. I paused the movie and walked to the kitchen to grab some water. As I stood by the sink, I saw movement in the backyard. Just a glimpse, a shadow shifting past the sliding glass door. My heart stopped. I didn't move right away, hoping it was just my reflection or a trick of the Christmas lights. But no, something was out there. I took a slow step toward the door and leaned forward just enough to see through the glass. There, about 15 feet away, was a man in a red jacket, standing in the backyard. Same guy. He wasn't under the streetlight anymore. He was in our backyard. He didn't move. He didn't knock, he just stood there, half hidden behind the tree in the corner of the yard. I felt that same fear I felt as a kid when I used to think there was a monster in my closet. That same heavy, frozen feeling in my chest. I quietly backed away from the sliding door, grabbed my phone, and called my sister. It rang 3 times before she picked up. "Hey, what's up?" she said, half laughing, like she was at the party having a good time. "Emma," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Is anyone supposed to be stopping by the house tonight?" Her tone shifted immediately. "What do you mean?" "There's a guy outside. He was at the front door earlier, and now he's in the backyard." "Call the police," she said, her voice suddenly serious. "Call them right now. Lock everything." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me, and said, "Okay, I'm on it." I hung up and dialed 911. I stayed on the line with the dispatcher, whispering my address and telling them that someone was outside my house. The whole time, I kept glancing toward the backyard, expecting to see him at the glass door. But he didn't come any closer. The dispatcher said police were on their way, but it might be a few minutes. I was still talking to her when I heard the loudest knock yet. This time, it came from the back door, the sliding glass door. I spun around and saw him. He was standing right there, his face pressed against the glass, fogging it up with his breath. He was smiling, wide. His teeth looked way too big for his mouth, and his eyes were locked on mine like he'd been waiting for me to look at him. I'm not ashamed to say I screamed. The kids woke up crying from upstairs. I grabbed the kitchen knife from the counter and backed away, still on the phone with the dispatcher. I kept saying, "He's at the back door. He's looking right at me." He didn't try to break the glass. He just kept knocking, slow, steady knocks like he had all the time in the world. Then, as quickly as he came, he was gone. No warning, no retreating footsteps, just gone. The police arrived about 5 minutes later. 2 officers searched the backyard and checked around the neighborhood. They didn't find him. No tracks, no sign of him at all, even though the snow had just started falling. They told me he probably ran off when he saw the flashing lights. I stayed on edge for the rest of the night, checking the windows every 10 minutes. I sat on the stairs with the knife on my lap, listening for any sound that wasn't normal. I didn't sleep. When Emma and her husband got home, she hugged me for a good minute and kept saying, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." I said it was probably just some guy looking for a place to sleep for the night. "It happens sometimes," she said. I didn't believe her. There's one last thing I can't stop thinking about. When the cops were getting ready to leave, one of them pulled me aside and asked, "You said he knocked on the sliding glass door, right?" "Yeah," I said. He looked at me for a second like he was trying to figure something out. Then he said, "There's fresh snow on the deck. No footprints leading to the door." I felt sick. The officer tried to brush it off, saying maybe he jumped off the deck or maybe I just didn't notice the tracks. But I know what I saw. He was right there, his breath fogging up the glass. And there were no footprints.